Hi, I am Teresa Perkins, the host of the Black Widow podcast on YouTube. Um, Stories of love, lost, and appealing. This particular story is going to hit a little differently. This is our fourth episode. Um, this one I'm going to ask you guys to help with because I want to hear you guys' questions. I want to hear your comments. I want to interact on this one, if you will. This episode is going to be about my son, David Perkins. For those of you who already know that, of course, I hadn't birthed any children, the traditional way anyways, but I have definitely been a part of many, if you will, young people's lives. You know that we adopted David and his sister from Mississippi. They were actually my mother-in-law's foster kids. She passed away in 2014. It took us 2 years to get those kids out of the system and here. We had to go through court dates and guardian ad litem. They had to come down here and home visits and background checks, of course. And listen, checks. Because go figure, they don't just give these kids away free. Although they say the system is full of children looking for good homes, they definitely don't, there's no discount for these kids, let me say that. Sick joke, but I've got a lot of them. Yeah, so my mother-in-law had foster kids the entire time I've been in the family, which is probably 30 years. And so DJ and Aaliyah were her last two before she passed away. And when she passed away, I just did not want to see those kids go back into the system. And I felt like we could give them a better life, or at least a better shot at life. You have to understand, another one of my sick jokes is, I don't know if you remember Robin Williams, the comedian. They used to do the baby kid thing. So, yeah, baby kids. But anyways, I always used to say crack kids. And so, they exist. Substance abuse. And yeah, I live with them. It's a real thing. That being said, I always used to say to those kids, like, I cannot imagine, and I can't imagine any of us who grew up in homes where, whether it was two-parent homes or one-parent homes, where our parents, our mothers didn't want us, or our fathers didn't want us, or our mothers didn't sacrifice for us, or our fathers didn't sacrifice for us, or, they didn't raise us, right? And this was those kids' existence. Their mother was for lack of a better word, a crackhead. I'm gonna catch flag for this, but if you know me, you know I shoot straight from the hip. I'm not big on sugarcoating. I guess I could use substance abuse, but we're gonna, I know one way and one way only. How about that? So, and they didn't know their father. So, putting that, into context, we didn't have enough information probably to make a very valid decision. We were making an emotional one. Not one that we necessarily regret. When the adoption went through, Aaliyah was 13, DJ was 15, he was soon to be 16. So yeah, they had spent their entire lives in the foster care system. Coming into an environment where people had structure and rules and ways of doing things, probably sent those kids into some kind of other shock, right? Because their whole lives has been chaos, right? It's been one home after the other home after, you know what I'm saying, this person, that person, abuse, you know, whatever. And it showed up early, just about as soon as we pulled into the driveway after the adoption went through. We knew we had something to deal with. The girl was immediately put into therapy and on meds, lifelong meds, by the way. DJ, not so much, because his didn't rebuild itself, right? DJ was really good at masking his. He was a happy kid anyways. And so you couldn't, by the time his rebuilt itself, you know, he was of age and he could make his own decisions. So it wasn't one that we could make for him. We could suggest, but we couldn't make it for him. Everybody asks why. We'll never know that. That one with DJ, for sure. I will say, I'll give you some lead up. 3 weeks before, DJ and some of his friends had gotten an Airbnb around the corner from the house. And so he called me, it's like a Saturday, and I'm out at the football field or something, and he's like, hey, we want you to come over here and fry some chicken. And so I'm like, boy, it's about to rain, you know, I'm trying to get to the house, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyways, just like any other mother, let me tell you right now, first of all, I love those boys. And so there was no way I wasn't going to fry them no chicken. So I come home, I change clothes, and I grab my fryers and grab all my seasons. I'm going to fry my boys some chicken, right? And yeah, so I get over there. They got margarita machines, they got barbecue, they got nachos, they got girls, they got a pool, they got a whole vibe, right? I'm like, boy, you call me over here, y'all got, he was like, we just wanted you to come. I was like, man, listen. So, you know, I hung out for a minute, had some drinks, you know. I had to literally sneak out because he was not trying to let me leave. And he called me like somewhere in between that house and my house, and he was like, why'd you leave? You know what I'm saying? We want you to stay. I was like, boy, y'all, you know what I'm saying? Have a good time. So that was 3 weeks before. Some other things happened in between that, that period. Regular things, right? Regular young adult things. So, you know, people, we sometimes judge each other on our worst day. Tim and I, probably me more than him, I was very firm, I'd like to say. Probably hard is what they'll say. But you have to understand, again, my mother passed away when I was 18, so I had to make a lot of decisions on my own, on the fly. I could have went back home to Ohio like my dad had asked me to, but that wasn't an option. I grew up here, you know, little country, little rock and roll. So, yeah, so, you know, I remember asking my auntie after my mother passed, because I did some things, nothing major, like stole the car that she told me was mine. Yeah, I don't see the crime there. Or sneaking out the house. Oh, I gave the alarm system hell. Going to the club on school nights, for sure. Skipping school, for that matter. Wow, with the same outfit. I don't know if anybody noticed every Thursday, because I think it was it the Benz? I don't know, whatever. And so I asked her, I was like, yeah, you know, I wanted to know about the forgiveness thing, where that was, you know, since she had passed. And she told me, she said, baby, parents don't keep records. So I'll say the same thing about DJ, except for, yeah, I used mine. You know, like, dude, you totally screwed up. Um, I'm not letting you off the hook, right? I'm her. So yeah, so that happened 3 weeks prior. The day of was a Saturday as well. Um, I remember, if she don't mind me saying, Stacy calling me. Stacy Jenda called me. Everybody knows Stacy out in the city, and she's bawling. She's like bawling out of control. And so she couldn't get anything out. I'm like, Stacy, you got to talk to me. I'm not understanding what you're saying. And so by the time she got anything out, the Montgomery County Sheriff's was at the door, like you see on TV. Nothing different. They came to the door. They were looking sad. They asked me if I wanted them to stay because I was here alone. They asked me if I wanted to know what happened. Of course I did. Yeah, so by now everybody's calling. A lot of his friends is calling, you know, whatever. Raylan in particular, who is on this podcast, which was one of DJ's best friends. She's bawling now. She's calling me. And so these kids will tell you, I probably have the same response to most anything. You have to understand too, it's not, life is perspective, right? It's not really, I'm not hard. I feel like everybody else. However, like I told Raylan that night, you know, DJ chose to leave. We're gonna choose to stay. And we're gonna be okay. And a friend of mine asked me after that, he was like, how do you deal with, you know, all of this, whatever, what looks like pressure, I guess. I've seen death. Enough of it, I swear. I've seen my mother take her last breath. I, for all intents and purposes, seen Tim take his last breath. I understand this about life and about death. You work your entire life to make as much money as possible, to do as many things as possible, to buy as many things as possible. You can't take any of the things with you when you die. You can't take any of the money with you when you die. And furthermore, you can't use any of the money to buy your last breath or your next breath. When it's time for you to go, none of those things matter. So at the end of the day, I choose to live and not to die. And so that's kind of what I put out when everybody is, you know, feeling some type of way or get emotional. You know, life is about perspective. So that's kind of how I try to lead Raylan and some of the other kids through their grief. DJ's got a daughter who I think is going to need as much therapy as she can get, as early as she can get it, as often as she can get it. I think that this is a family trait, if you will. I think it runs deep in their family, for sure. Mental illness, that is. I think, do I think it would have saved his life? I think that was DJ's day. We all have one. You know, hindsight, I wish he had called me. I don't think I would have helped any, because again, I'm gonna be, you know, kind of blunt, like, boy, get off my phone with this foolishness. Go get ready for work tomorrow. Call me on your way to work. We're not doing that tonight. Like, we're not. What are you talking about? So I probably wouldn't have helped in that instance. The unfortunate thing is that parents, mothers go into the hospital and have babies the traditional way. And they check you out in 2 days. And they give you a diaper bag and a blanket and a onesie. But there's no manual, right? Nor is there one when you adopt children. Believe me, I tried calling DHS early and often. I honestly, I don't like to, there's no manual to parenting. first of all. We all just do the best that we know how to do. I don't like to blame. I'm the queen of accountability, I think. However, I think the system failed those kids, and I think the system failed us. Before it was over, everybody in the house needed therapy. Just being honest and frank. Because there was so much to unpack, so much that we didn't see, so much that we didn't anticipate. We thought we'd bring these kids home, enroll them in school, buy them their first car, take them on vacations, give them a life, guide them into their own. It just wasn't that simple. And I don't, let me say this, I don't think it's that simple traditionally either. I know parents struggle sometimes. But yeah, we were fighting demons that we just had no clue about. You can't, we didn't have expectations about, I don't know, every parent's got expectations, so that's not the right word, but we didn't, we just didn't know, right? I think we all, and I think the system should probably make it mandatory, and particularly for these kids, because they go through so much in the system, that they have lifelong therapy, right? That should be written into the laws of every state. And it should be funded by the state. Once you adopt children, and we adopt these kids, they are Perkins. You take on all of that, and there's no support for that. There's no, I'm telling you, I called down to DHS a couple of times. They answered a couple of times and stopped after a certain point. I guess, yeah, wasn't their problem anymore. Yeah, so I think that we needed support. We needed more, definitely, than what we got. And we needed more information than what we got. If you ask me, was DJ a bad kid? He was not. DJ was a typical kid. He did typical kid things. If you ask me, did we bump heads? Heck yeah. You gotta know me. I'm the crash dummy. I'm gonna bump your head anyway. Just to show you the, whatever. But he was a typical kid. Just a typical kid who had been through and lived through some things that none of us would quite understand. What happened that day, we'll never know. What we do know is that he had to have been in some type of crisis. And yeah, I don't think there was anything that anyone could have done to have stopped it. I want you guys to ask me some questions. I've tried to give you some backstory. Love, loss, and healing. the Black Widow podcast on YouTube. This is a matter of mental health. This is a different subject, and this is you don't think about it until it happens to you, right? This is just not something that you ever could have told me was going to be a thing. At least not for me. Not in my house. Not with my kid. But it is, and it's real, and it happened, and we're still gonna be okay, right? We just got to do a better job. We've got to be better people, more compassionate people, more understanding people. Yeah. If I got the opportunity, should I say, to speak with DJ now, I'd probably snatch him up best I could and let him know that we aren't quitters. We just don't quit, right? Quitting is not an option. That's probably exactly what he didn't need to hear. You know, so it just was his day. And the opportunity to change the outcome wasn't there. I don't know. This is just an intro to the actual podcast. I'll probably have some more things to say afterwards. But let's start the conversation on mental health. And adoption. I don't think we talk enough about it, right? And it's not for everybody. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with my plumbing. I just saw, I guess, the opportunity to try and give those kids a better life. That was our only intention. We had no other dog in that race. And we tried. I don't see DJ's decision as a failure, by the way. At least not for us. I just think he made a decision. So when you ask me why or what happened or all those things, I wish I had an answer. And I know, you know, if you look at me and you're trying to figure out, like, you know, I don't know. I hadn't beat myself up about an answer either. I think we all get choices. And we have to live with the ones that we make. There's no other way to put it, right? But do understand that when you see these kids, sometimes school is about to start back. Not every kid is coming from a loving situation. And just because, in our case, just because we adopted them and for sure they came into a loving household, did not wipe away the years of damage that had already been done. It did not remove the substance residue from their systems. In fact, not so much in DJ's case, but probably in Aaliyah, his sister's case, I think they struggled with structure and with authority and with a family dynamic because they never had one, if that makes sense. They never, the things that we take for granted, they just didn't have. And by the time we tried to introduce that into their lives, it was too late. It was too late. So yeah, I got a lot of people that were trying to figure out where did I get kids from. We actually adopted them for all the right reasons, and we did our best. This is the 4th episode of the Black Widow podcast on YouTube. I'd like if you would like, share, and subscribe. Stories of love, loss, and healing. This one is special. It's on David Perkins. And yeah, ask me some questions. Anything. It wouldn't bother me. Teresa Perkins, your host, the Black Widow podcast. You guys have a good night. Bye-bye.